Solar Flash Update for October 21st. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what we know about the solar flash. We're going to be talking about how the solar energies on Earth are the highest ever in recent history. Comets are increasing the solar storms and triggering the sun to release more solar storms, and how to handle the intense solar energies. As always, please question your reality and then change it. ThunderWizard.com is the website that supports this YouTube channel. Please go check out all of the ways that you can subscribe. The Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong is the most popular and will help you achieve a state of energetic frequency that will allow you to access the energies that are coming to you and hitting planet Earth. We've got higher dimensional energy practices, personal mentorship, spiritual counseling, live Zoom group classes. Books can be found at michaelwilliamdenny.com. Every Wednesday and Saturday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we do the live guided interdimensional meditations. I would say these are probably the most powerful, most important things that are being done on planet Earth right now to help shift us to higher dimensions. All right, so we've got a few things to talk about today. I do have a list here of things that we know about the solar flash, which we'll get into very briefly. So I just want to say, generally speaking, that the energy is continuing to increase. Even though right now we're not getting hit with solar storms, the Earth and Earth's magnetosphere and the atmosphere has been storing up all of the solar radiation that has been hitting. And in fact, based on what some scientists are saying, that there are these bands of electromagnetic energy from the sun that are, surrounding the Earth and building up. So we're not anywhere near done with this current solar flash event. Bear in mind, the solar flash event is an ongoing thing, and we are still in the midst of it. The real question is what's going to come at the end, and is that end coming quickly? We'll take a look at that. So let's take a look at the first thing on the list here is what we know about the solar flash. And what I mean by that is, every now and then I need to take a reality check. This has been such an incredible roller coaster ride for me. If you're following the channel, you probably know. And I'm very transparent with you guys. I let you know exactly what I'm experiencing, what's going on with me. And I'm sure many of you are having very similar experiences. This has been just a roller coaster. The energies are up, they're down. I'm in other dimensions. I'm back in the third dimension. I'm full of hope. And then I'm down and I'm depressed and I want to go and, invest in the stock market. And I just keep going back and forth on a daily basis. It's just a roller coaster every day. So if you're going through that, what we're gonna do right now is we're just gonna take a reality check. If you've been wondering if you're losing your mind, I have, definitely. I got to be honest with you, on a daily basis, I wonder if I'm sane. So what I do every now and then when I really feel like I'm losing it, I go and I take a reality check on what it is that we know. So am I making this up? Have I lost it? Or is something incredibly powerful on a supernatural, interdimensional level? Is something like that happening? And I'm not crazy. I'm actually seeing the truth for what it is. And that reality is not at all what I thought it was. So let's do this together. So what we know about the 5D shift and the solar flash event. So first, I've been alive long enough to remember this. The predictions of an ascension event and the solar flash have been going on since 2012. The truth is, the talk about some kind of ascension has been going on since I was just like a little kid. You know, the Aquarian Age, there was a song when I was a kid. It was called The Dawning of Aquarius. Or the Age of Aquarius. I don't remember the exact name. This is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Age of Aquarius. Aquarius. That was a song on the radio when I was a kid. I remember hearing it. And, it didn't mean a whole lot to me then, but, every now and then the hippies would talk about the age of Aquarius, man. Harmony and understanding, truth, love, equality, man. That's what I remember as a little kid growing up. So people have been talking about it ever since then. We've got the 2012. I also remember, I wish I could remember the name of it. There was something that was going on in the 80s where there was going to be some kind of, I don't know what it was. But again, I was in college and I didn't really care. I wasn't listening to any of that. But there was talk about some shift of consciousness that was going to come. And there was a specific date. It came and went and nothing really happened. Y2K, people thought the world was going to end. Nothing happened. 2012 was a big one. People were talking about how the Mayans had predicted that the world was going to come to a cataclysmic end on December 21st, 2012. And I won't lie to you, I wasn't super scared, but I was like, I wonder. Yeah. And came and went. Nothing happened. So, what did happen on 2012, December 21st, 2012? We can talk about that. So the Mayan calendar predicted the end of the current Earth age and the start of a new Earth. So what we weren't getting back then is that they were saying that the Mayans were predicting an end to the world, a big cataclysmic end, but that's not what it was predicting. As it turns out, it was predicting the same kind of thing that the Hopis were predicting, which was that there was going to be a new age, a new Earth. I believe, coincidentally enough, the Hopis called this the shift from the fourth world to the fifth world. So we like that number 5. People use the word 5D, fifth density, fifth dimension, and the Hopis were calling it the fifth world. So I believe that the Mayans were saying the same thing, the end of the fourth world, the beginning of the fifth. Now, the prediction, which was very interesting now in hindsight, wasn't that the world was going to come to a cataclysmic end. What it said was that the Earth's sun and the Earth were going to go through a wormhole and end up on the other side of the galaxy. And it would be the beginning of a new world. That's really what they said. Well, that sounds very interesting way back then. You look at that and what the heck does that mean? It might have meant literally what it said. In 2012, as it turns out, you may not know this, but the Earth moved 70,000 light years across the Milky Way galaxy. This is a famous Mandela effect. And you can go on and listen to, I'm so bad with names when I do videos, I should write these things down. What's his name? Tyson, the astronomer. He's the protege of Carl Sagan. I remember Carl Sagan because, again, I'm that old. I remember him on television doing Nova and all kinds of other things and talking about billions and billions of stars. Well, he made a video, which if you look for it, you can find it on YouTube, and he very clearly points out that Earth was on the very outer edge of the galaxy in the Sagittarius arm, like literally the very outer edge, complete, total outside of the galaxy. And I remember being taught that all through, my adult life. We talked about it. It was talked about frequently. So I grew up and into adulthood. It was really pushed into my brain that we are on the outside, the very outside of the galaxy. If you look at the galaxy, way over on the left side, just almost completely off the grid. And what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's got a video where he says very clearly around 2012 in his show Star Talk. And he says very clearly that we are in the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way galaxy. I wish somebody would ask him if he's changed his mind. Does he still think that? Because if you go and just Google where is Earth in the Milky Way galaxy, you're going to find out we're on the Orion Spur, halfway between the center and the outside of the galaxy. If you look at it on what looks like the eastern side, the right side of the galaxy, which if you calculate it would be about 70,000 light years. So either somebody made a huge mistake or something happened. We have a major Mandela effect. Now I've since studied this. I've tried to figure out, okay, maybe science made a huge discovery that they were wrong. That happens all the time. All the time things like that happen. And I looked for it and there isn't anything. There is no announcement. There is no scientific announcement saying, we were wrong. It's not in the Sagittarius arm, it's in the Orion Spur. If you look for it, there's this really nebulous, how did we figure it out? And there is no path. It just all of a sudden they just say it. They don't even say how they know it or how they discovered it. They just say, yeah, we're in the Orion Spur. Well, to me, this is exactly what the Mayan calendar predicted at the end of the current age and the start of the new Earth, which is that the Earth, the sun, and would mean all of the planets and all of the stars around us, would have gone through a wormhole in the center of the galaxy, poof, and showed up on the completely other side of the galaxy. Now, there's another thing associated with that, which is, again, I can't prove this, but I remember as a kid that the sun was yellow. I mean, it was bright. You couldn't look at it. It was super bright. It'd blind you. But it was of a yellow hue. And now the sun is white. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there was just a lot of, because when I was a kid, there was a lot of pollution in the air, a lot of smog. And there was a big reduction in smog as a result of things like catalytic converters and unleaded gasoline and things like that. Even though there's still a huge amount, and the smog is still horrific in Los Angeles. Maybe I was just looking through the smog. I don't know. But a lot of people also say that the sun, they remember the sun being yellow, and now it's white. There's been talk about prophecies of that there would be a new sun. These kinds of things. So, is it a fact? Can I prove it? Does it mean anything? Not necessarily, but it's something to put in there. Are we making this up, or is there evidence showing us that this thing really is happening? All right, the Mandela effects have been increasing since 2012. That is undeniable. Now, it's been a long time, and I don't really care about Mandela effects anymore. Maybe you've become desensitized to them. People would talk about Mandela effects. Remember, my big red pill moment about a lot of things was in 2021 during the whole lockdown craziness, when I started looking under the peeling wallpaper underneath. I saw I saw what was really going on, and I kept looking and looking, and it exploded into, I'm now fully wearing my tinfoil hat all the time. So, but before that, people would talk about the Mandela effect, and I didn't even know what it was. I knew it was some tinfoil hat thing that I didn't want any part of, and so I poo-pooed it and told people, But when I first started looking into it, of course, it was well known by then. That was in 2021, 2022, when I really started looking at it. And it absolutely just destroyed me. Because, I'm a very practical, down-to-earth person. This is why I keep doing these, let's just take a look at what's going on. What is really happening? Let's take a reality check. What are the facts that we know? Forget about my feelings and my thoughts and my fears. Let's look at the facts. And I became absolutely convinced that the Mandela effect was real, and that it was proof that we were living in an illusion, just like the Vedics call this reality. They call it Maya, which is a goddess, which means illusion. This is an illusion. And not only that, but time didn't exist. And time was an illusion. What are some of I've shared about some of the ones that if you go and research them, you may not be affected by it because you might not be old enough. But again, I was born in 1963, and literally right before Kennedy's assassination. So my entire childhood and early adulthood was filled with pictures and films of the car that Kennedy was in when he was assassinated. There was nothing special about the car. It was a 2-bench seat, maybe, if you have kids in there, you could fit 6 people in it, but it was 2-bench seat 4 people in it comfortably. He was in the back with his wife, and in the front was a Secret Service guy driving it, and whatever it is, the mayor or the governor, or wherever it is, I think the mayor was sitting in the passenger side. And that's it. And you look at it now, and it's a completely different car. It's got 3 bench seats in it. It's got all these bulletproof things, all this crazy stuff that wasn't there. And the film, by the way, has completely changed. When you look at the Zapruder film, you can see on the side of the film the little sprocket holes for those cameras. That didn't exist either. That wasn't part of the film at all. So the film is completely changed in a bunch of different ways, and this isn't a misremember. You don't misremember something like that, because it was talked about ad nauseum, and it was analyzed ad nauseum. And if you look for it, you can find residual. You can find CIA reconstructions of the event, and the car is exactly the way I described it. So they wouldn't have recreated the event with a different car. They wouldn't have done that. That is an absolute fact. The Mandela effect is real. That's just one. There's another one. There's so many of them, but another one that is absolutely, completely, totally unmistakable is, again, I'm so bad with names when I'm doing a video, but Gracie Allen, the Burns and Allen TV show, for years, every single show at the end, he says, "Say goodnight, Gracie," and she says, "Good night, Gracie." She doesn't say that anymore. In fact, now the films, the videos, not videos, the films, the TV shows that are recorded, she never says it once. She says good night. Now, I know that there's residual evidence showing that she did that. Anybody alive, but from the 50s to the 70s knows that. It's an absolute fact. She absolutely every time he says, "Say goodnight, Gracie," and she says, "Good night, Gracie." Every single time. It was a joke. It was an ongoing joke. It was the meme about them that kept them famous. It's gone. I could go on, but those two things are unmistakable. There's a bunch of different things, names of of songs, of television shows, of movies, spellings on Jiffy or Jif, and maybe those things could be misremembered. But those two things I just mentioned, there's no way I could have misremembered that. It's not possible, no possible way. And so you put it all together, the past is changing, which means this reality is changing. So that's something. Put that in your bonnet and smoke it. So the Mandela effects have been increasing since 2012. 9/11 revealed to many people the existence of a global corporate government. I didn't. 9/11 didn't awaken me. I bought into it. I believed what I was told. And looking back on it, there was no reason for me not to believe it. I mean, why would, when people would say this is an inside job, I would say the same thing a lot of other people say, which is, what would be the point of that? How does that help anybody? And besides that, how could they possibly have the resources? How could they possibly have the resources to cover that up? That would mean that they would have to have complete control over all of the mass media. They would have to have complete control over all of the news stations, all of the newspapers, everything that was shown on television. They'd have to have complete control over all of the governmental systems. It would take millions and millions of people. There's just no way they would have the resources to do that. And the reason why that's so hard to believe is because if you believe that, then it really means that there really is a cabal of very powerful, very rich people who control all of the corporations, the government, the military, the intelligence operations. They would be able to, they would have massive control of everything. And that just was so unrealistic to me that, of course, like everybody else, I said, it's not possible. Not to mention emotionally, psychologically, how incredibly challenging it is to the psyche to believe that, because that means that you can't trust anything or anybody in any kind of authority position. Well, now a lot of people have woken up since then. So that's a fact. This, that event began an awakening all over the world that is continuing to go on to this day. That is a fact. What else? Lockdowns and mandates from needlecraft further exposed the globalists. So, in 2020, we had that thing that happened to us. And I remember the President of the United States, the supposed country of freedom, where there's a constitution that allows people sovereignty over their body and their choice of life and what they go and what they do. And I remember hearing the president telling us in an address that if we as citizens did not take an experimental medical procedure that had been untested and had shown evidence of being potentially damaging and unhealthy to at least some of the population. When he sat there and told us that if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be allowed to work, we wouldn't be allowed to travel, which would mean he would be actively choosing to make people homeless and without jobs and without money. And I couldn't believe my ears. I could not believe that again was something you would have seen in some kind of crazy fictional movie about the end of the world. And I saw that. That can't be denied. That did happen. You might not be old enough to know how big of a deal that is. But again, you grew up in the 20th century, towards the middle of the 20th century. You lived in there. It was a very different time. A lot more freedom. There were problems, of course, but much more freedom than what we have now. And there were actually, even though information was controlled, there was still a lot of freedom of the press, a lot more than there is now. So that whole thing really, that happened. That's a real thing. What else? 2023 to present. Solar maximum. Okay, 2023 to the present from. Okay, this is what I want to say. From 2023 to the present time, the solar maximum has been twice as strong as predicted. That's a fact. So we want to be talking about the solar flash event and solar radiation and all of that. It is a fact that this solar maximum that we are currently in case you don't know what that is, a solar maximum. The sun goes through cycles, solar minimum, solar maximum. And in the solar maximum, that is when the magnetic poles of the sun flip and the sun is much more active in terms of creating solar flares and solar storms and things like that. So it happens all the time. This one was predicted to be very minor, and it's turned out to be, so far, just until now, at least double, at least twice as powerful, twice as active as they predicted. So if we're wanting to think, is this solar flash thing real? We've got that. That's a fact we can take a look at. Governments and corporations actively are trying to block the sun. Now, this is also a fact, and I'm not saying anything hidden there's been talk about using planes. Now, I'm not talking about the so-called chemtrails. We wouldn't talk about that on this channel because, I don't want to engage in misinformation. But it has been talked about that there is cloud seeding has been talked about. There has been talk from people. It's the United States President Biden, as well as very high level, very rich, influential people like Bill Gates have talked about using fleets of planes to release chemicals to block the sun in an attempt to curb global warming. The theory is that if we block out some of the rays of the sun, it will make the earth cooler, and then we can combat global warming. That is a fact. And you have to ask the question, is there something else that we're not being told about why they want to block the sun? And then you start to ask questions about mandatory lockdowns and being forced inside, not allowed to go out. Now, I don't know where you were during all this, but I was in Australia. Now, lucky for me, I was in Queensland, which was totally blocked off from the entire world. Nobody could get in or out. Now, that was fine with me. You could get out, but you couldn't come back in. But now that was fine with me, because I was in my heaven, so I didn't need to leave. In fact, it reduced the tourism considerably. So I had all of this surfing and all of this beach all to myself. I was happy. As far as I'm concerned, I could have stayed that forever. But in other parts of Australia where it wasn't so good, like in Sydney and in Melbourne, the lockdowns were horrifically damaging, and people were deleting themselves because they were locked in their house. They literally couldn't leave their house. And if you weren't needle crafted, you weren't allowed to go in the park. So if you wanted to just go take a walk in the park, you had to go prove that you'd been needle crafted in order to do that. Now, I watched that and I was like, that's horrible. I didn't have to worry about that because none of those things were going on where I was because, again, nobody was getting in or out of that whole state, so we didn't have to worry about it. But that is something, again, if you grew up in the late, the mid to late 20th century, it's unheard of. Nothing like that would have ever happened in the United States, for sure. Nothing like that would have happened. Totally inconceivable, and yet it's a real thing. Why do they want to keep us out of the sun? You have to ask yourself that question. Something else that came about is that I found out very recently, and I was completely floored by this, was that it turns out that, I don't know when it was, in the 80s or the 90s, when it started to get... I grew up in the 70s, and we went to the beach. There was no such thing really as sunblock. Yeah, there was stuff out there. There was like nose coat, this goopy stuff that looked like snot. You could put that on your nose. And of course, the stuff that I use when I want to prevent getting sunburned when I go surfing, that white stuff you put on your face, I forget what it's called. Anyway, that stuff was there. But in terms of like whole body, there wasn't really, you could get sunblock, but I mean, when I was a kid in the 70s, we went down with, in fact, in the beginning of the summer, super, you can't get whiter than me. And beginning of summer, what we would do is as kids, we would go down there without wearing anything, and we would lie in the sun and get sunburned, just completely, totally sunburned until you couldn't move. And we did it so that then the burnt skin would peel off, and then we would be tan for the rest of the summer. In fact, we would like peel the skin off of each other. It was, when you think about it now, it's just absolutely crazy. And we were told that kind of sun exposure gives you skin cancer. That's what we were taught. And it turns out that whenever it was in the 80s or the 90s when sunblock became really popular, and medical professionals started telling you have to be wearing sunblock every time you go out in the sun because of skin cancer. And it turns out that the melanoma skin cancer that kills you has nothing to do with the sun. In fact, where melanoma shows up oftentimes in the body will be places where it's where you're wearing clothes. And so it has nothing to do with the sun. It's something else that's going on. And the kind of cancers that you do get from the sun are very treatable. You can go to the doctor and they can treat it and get rid of it very easily. So we've been lied to this whole time about the sun and skin cancer. And you have to wonder why. Well, they made a ton of money. Not only that, but it turns out that some surgical group, having to do with skin surgeries and all that, they were part of this. They put thousands or millions of dollars into propaganda about this, so that if you just had the tiniest little weird thing that could actually be treated, you'd go and have to pay a bunch of money for this surgery that didn't save you. And of course, what they would do is the skin cancers that aren't that big of a deal, that do come from the sun, that are easily treatable, they would lump them all together. And so you didn't know the difference between melanoma and the other kind of skin reactions to the sun. But those skin reactions tend to be because of, now I'm not talking as a medical professional here, but I'm going to make a guess that it has to do with something that's going on internally that has to do with toxins in the skin. Because one thing that happens when you go in the sun, the sun will bring out toxins. In fact, when I ate really crappy, I would sit in the sun and I would get rashes. And it turned out because the sun was getting my skin to release the toxins, and the toxins would cause a rash. So, people drinking all the time, smoking all the time, eating, McDonald's and, kinds of garbage. You go out in the sun, you get rashes. It's because the sun is actually trying to heal you. In fact, it's a well-known phrase that the most powerful disinfectant is sunlight. So why are they trying to keep you out of the sun? That's a fact. Governments and corporations actively trying to block the sun. Billionaires are building massive underground bunkers. Now, this is a reality. Massive underground bunkers. and they're preparing for some kind of cataclysm. So my understanding is that the dark force elites have this belief that the solar flash is coming, but they believe that it will be this massive solar flare that's going to burn all the forests and destroy the world and all of that. And so it's not, you have to ask, where are they coming up with this? What is it that they're so afraid about? What is it about the sun that frightens them so much? You got to ask these questions. And when you start asking these questions, the whole idea of the solar flash starts to sound more plausible. All right, solar energies are hitting Earth, are unprecedented, and people feel the energies. So we have to take in, even though it's not, factual scientific proof, we do have to take in people's experiences. And this is something that I know for a fact. For me, I'm not making it up. When a solar storm hits, I feel it. And I feel right now, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I feel that the Earth has accumulated a huge amount of higher frequencies, even when, like right now, we're not getting any solar storms at the moment, but it feels like we are. And the Earth is definitely, the frequency is changing. The Schumann resonance is shifting and changing. And so it is a fact that the frequency, which is what people are saying, the shift to 5D is going to be a shift in frequency from solar radiation, gamma rays, that kind of thing. That's a real thing that's happening, and people's experience of that is real. I didn't put that in the list, but I just realized that scientists have discovered that high frequency gamma rays are hitting Earth. They're coming from our sun, and that's impossible. They'll say in the same breath, the sun is not capable of producing these very high frequency gamma rays, but they are hitting the Earth and they're coming from the sun. And they say, without knowing how to explain it, their explanation is somehow this is coming from the central black hole in the center of our galaxy, which is apparently the only place, or one of the only places, that is capable of creating high frequency gamma rays. And so that doesn't make any sense. You ask them, well, how is the sun sending these gamma rays from the center of our galaxy to Earth? They won't have an answer to that, but they'll say that's the only place it can come from. And that so happens that that's exactly what people have been saying for who knows how long, that the central, what they call the central sun of our galaxy, which is a black hole in the center of our galaxy, is going to send high frequency gamma radiation through a wormhole to the center of our sun, which will release this onto planet Earth, which will shift the frequency and the consciousness up. So science itself is saying that the solar flash is happening based on the definition of both the scientists and the crazy New Age people who are saying this thing about the central sun sending energy to our sun, creating the solar flash. Things are happening exactly the way both the crazy, loony, spiritual people are, as well as the scientists are all agreeing on this, even though they don't realize it. So that's a fact. Military, mainstream media are pushing the UFO invasion agenda. Again, this might not be a big deal to you because it's interesting to me. Nobody seems to care. I mean, if you go to the grocery store and start talking about UFOs, nobody's really going to say it. Nobody really cares. Yeah, I think I saw one when I was a kid. Or, oh, that's interesting. Nobody cares. But the mainstream media and the government are in agreement that UFOs or aliens are coming to Earth and that they are a threat. Not only that, I kid you not, on YouTube, if you go looking for it, you can find, besides the History Channel, of course, National Geographic. This blew my mind when I saw this. National Geographic. I mean, National Geographic, when I was a kid, was a scientific journal that showed you the science of the world. And National Geographic has a video on YouTube that says something to the effect of the global threat of alien invasion and UFOs and all that. And I'm like, what? So maybe that's not a big deal to you, but that is something, again, up until just the past couple of years, the default response by anything military, government, or science has been to say there's no such thing as UFOs, there's no such thing as aliens. Anybody who believes that is crazy. And now they're saying, not only are they saying that UFOs exist, they're saying that they're extraterrestrial and that they're coming to Earth, and they're hinting, if not outright claiming, that there's going to be some kind of an invasion. So if you want to find out what that's all about, I strongly encourage you to watch videos by Dr. Stephen Greer, like Unacknowledged. It's free. You can watch it on YouTube for free. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. You can watch that for free on YouTube. Go watch those if you want to find out what that is all about and why all of a sudden our military, our science, and our mainstream media are together trying to frighten people into believing that there's going to be some kind of alien invasion. That's a real thing. And that is absolutely mind-boggling. That understand that the acknowledgement by the scientific and the governmental community, the acknowledgement of the existence of extraterrestrial life is a direct threat to religion, to science as we know it. So that is a very strange thing. If I don't make any more conclusions about it, that right there, it's not like I'm in this echo chamber talking about this shift of this solar flash event that's going to shift our consciousness. That's not so completely crazy in comparison to what the actual government is telling you to believe. Something's changing. The world is changing. When that happens, if you had talked to me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and said, what's going to happen is the government and the military are going to start admitting that aliens exist, I would have said, there's just no possible way. That's never going to happen. But that's the world we live in. Light beings are communicating to humans more than ever before. At least, again, we have to take people's experience. You all know my experience. I didn't believe in aliens 3 years ago. And here I am communicating with higher dimensional extraterrestrial beings on a daily basis. So much so that I think I'm losing my mind because of all the crazy stuff that's coming in. So these are the facts. This is what we know about the 5D shift and the solar flash event. Whatever conclusions you come to, we cannot deny those things that we just said. So if we want to acknowledge what it is we think we're experiencing, what we see is happening, these things seem to indicate that something is definitely happening. What that is, whether there's going to be a final solar flash event, I personally hope that there will be, but I don't know. But whatever it is, something is clearly happening. So comets, there have been comets that have been heading towards Earth. You knew about the Chant comet, that there it is right there, and the sun is seemingly responding as if saying hello. So when this comet on the 6th, between the 6th and the 12th, this comet was going between the Earth and the sun, and that whole time the sun was firing off huge solar flares that were hitting Earth. A lot of crazy storms and radiation were hitting Earth as a result of that. I thought that was significant because I have the impression that I was told by light beings and telepathic communication a while ago, before we even knew that that comet existed. They were saying when a comet appears in the sky, everything's going to change. That's when whatever it is going to happen. And when that showed up, and I saw that that was going to happen, and I saw that on the 6th, and I had had a dream where I woke up one morning and October 6th was in my, calendar was in my face as I woke up. As you know, I put two and two together, and I thought the solar flash was coming, and I said goodbye to everybody. I wrote notes. I was prepared to leave this planet, and apparently I'm still here. So that didn't happen, but I still believe clearly that this was a significant event. And I have to say my experience since the 6th is that everything has continued to shift, so much so that it really does look like at least for the time being, it looks like the deep state has lost a lot of their influence, and they seem to have no ability to control information anymore like they do. Nobody seems to believe them. Very few people. So I take that to mean something. And people besides me, there are other people who aren't into this whole solar flash thing, that I hear people making statements that they now believe that we're on the other side of this fight against the dark forces on planet Earth. So, again, it's we have to at least acknowledge people's experiences. They don't necessarily aren't facts, but we put them next to the other facts, and it creates a very convincing argument that this thing is happening and it's real. Whoops. So comets. And to finish that up, there's a second comet on the way. In case you don't know, another one that just appeared out of nowhere. And that was hitherto unknown, which is heading towards the sun. In fact, it's called a sun grazer, and it's going to come so close to the sun that they're saying it might even be destroyed. So if this comet, as it came by the sun, created a bunch of powerful solar storms, then if one's going to come so close, it's a sun grazer. If the comets are triggering and releasing the solar storms, then we might have some more. And if that thing blows up. Now, I have to, again, we've got these comets that are coming out of nowhere and coming close, that they're clearly orbiting the sun. And by the way, this most recent comet that is going to hit on the 28th, I believe. The 28th is when it's going to go around the sun. That one is said to be a fragment of a comet. Now, we've got fragments of comets. That means that however long the orbit of that cometary fragment is, it means that there was a full comet that came with it last time. And how long ago was that? So I think it is very, very coincidental that we've got the yugas here, and directly opposite the 26,000 year cycle. Again, forget about the yugas, but just the precessional of planet Earth goes through, it rotates 26,000 years. And directly opposite that, 13,000 years ago, we have this younger Dryas comet event that caused the cataclysm. And are these comets that are now coming to Earth, are these fragments of those other comets that caused the solar Dryas event? Which would mean if we're on the opposite side of the yugas, as you hear me say, then it's not going to be a cataclysm that brings the world down, at least not for those of us who stay in higher frequencies. It's going to be a cataclysmic event in the opposite direction. We're right on time for it. And if comets did it last time, these are the same fragments of the same comets coming around, but this time they're going to release us in the opposite direction. Anyway, I don't know. That's my guess. So, comets are increasing solar storms. How to handle intense solar energies. So, we're doing it. We're taking active steps. These live guided interdimensional meditations, in my opinion, I believe are the single most powerful influencing acts that are being done by anybody on planet Earth. And I know that sounds very grandiose of me. There's not a whole lot of us doing it. There's, at any given meditation, there's 30 people there during the live meditation, a couple, 200, 300 who might watch afterwards. It's not a lot of people in the grand scheme of things, but I believe what I'm being told, and I know the experiences I'm having and the way my body is reacting to these things. I believe that we are probably the most influential force on this planet, bringing this new 5D awakening, whatever that's going to be. So I encourage you to be a part of that. And let's see, what else was I saying? So how to handle these. So doing these meditations it's a way of consciously leaning into it. Because my experience is if you try and be normal, you're going to be miserable. If you try and just stay in the middle and not really go one way or the other, you're going to be miserable. What's happening is, again, we're going through this absolute complete splitting on Earth of people's thoughts and behaviors, and we're just 100% split down the middle. People are changing, shifting. And so if you just sit around and not do anything, it's guaranteed you'll be pulled back down in the other direction into deeper negativity. I've seen it like I've never seen before. People that I've known for decades, I've seen them just flail and fall down like never before. They are far worse than they've ever been. People are up and leaving, and breaking off contact with me for no reason, accusing me of things that I've never done, never said, and they're just up and leaving. And people literally saying to me, and I'm not the only one, other people that I work with have been told the same thing by people when they say, I can't be around your frequency. I mean, that was a quote. I can't tolerate being around your frequency. I can't have anything to do with you anymore. This really is a shift in frequencies. And those who hang on to trying to stay in the world, trying to do the world thing, reputation, money, wealth, fame, all societal norms, all that stuff. If you try and get your value through the normal societal way of doing things, it's going to just tie you to that third dimensional consensus, which is led by those same people that want to block out the sun. So that's where you're headed. You have two choices. You can either lean into this or go in the other direction. Those are the only two choices you have. If you try and stay in the middle, you'll get pulled back down. So this is a conscious decision we have to make. So I encourage you to do that. I'm not going to show you the brand name here, but I've got some stuff here that I use to purify water. And I found that it's been very helpful for my frequency. So we don't talk about that here on this channel because we don't talk about things like water purification. But on my Rumble channel, I am going to give you some very specific thoughts and recommendations about, because in tough times like this we got to purify our water. But I'm going to tell you some other things about this particular treatment that has a lot to do with what we're talking about in this video. So go check out my Rumble channel, Thunder Wizard. By the way, for whatever reason, Rumble created two channels for me, so look for both of my channels and watch the most recent ones on Rumble. And we'll talk about this water purification system that I found has been having a huge impact on my frequency, and I'll share more of my thoughts about that in that video. So that's it for me today. This is the Solar Flash. update for October 21st. And yeah, please, again, it's very important that you support this channel more than ever. I need your support. Go subscribe. Warrior 90 Day Lightning Qigong. Subscribe. You can become an apprentice if you want weekly or monthly sessions with me. And we've got live Zoom group classes. And you can go to the shop. Go to thunderwizard.com, click on shop for the very powerful video courses, including the 5-element Maoshan, which is by far the most powerful energy practice in the history of planet Earth. I can say that with full confidence. Those of you who have done it, you know what I'm talking about. I've been getting a lot of feedback from people telling me this. So go check all that stuff out. Support the channel. Empower yourself. Shift up. That's it for now. Yeah. Please take very good care of yourselves. I will see you all very soon.